several of you, I recognize your faces. I've been in your homes. Many of you I've seen at my seminars. So you are welcome, and I'm just glad you're here. We're going to cover a lot of information tonight. And so what we're going to ask you to do is let me get through the information, and then we're going to take your questions. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you see a little bubble that says chat. If you click on that, you can put your questions in. I've got team members on tonight that are going to watch the chat, and when we're through, they're going to tell me what questions you've asked, and we're going to do our best to answer those questions. So let me bring up my presentation now to start, and we will get you going here. Okay, let's get you up here. All righty. Okay, so what we're going to discuss tonight, first of all, just to share, as I said, I know a lot of you, but I know some of you are on this class tonight because the link was shared to you with you, and you may not know who I am or what my relationship is to the group here tonight. My name is Kathy Cairo. I am a realtor. I've been in selling real estate in Central Ohio since 1996, which is going on almost 30 years. I've sold thousands of homes. I lead a great team. Many of my team members are going to hop on tonight to assist me. My pledge throughout the years I've been a real estate, and I was a realtor in a normal market, and then I went through the recession, and now we've been in a seller's market for several years. And I've always had an aim to educate you, to make sure you understood what was going on in the market at any given time, as well as changes that might be coming on in the market. And so, again, that is my goal tonight. We are seeing a level 3 hurricane come our way in the industry that's going to change a lot of the ways that we've done business. And if you're a home buyer or a home seller, the changes that are coming up are greatly going to affect you. So tonight we're going to talk about that. And then, as I said, we are going to then open it up for your questions so that we can help you. First of all, get up here just a second. Let's get that out of the way. I want to give you a few definitions here because we're going to talk about some things that I don't want to assume you know. And if you do know these things, bear with me because there will be those tonight that are not familiar with the terms. The first thing I want to share with you is who we are. The National Association of Realtors, or we call it the NAR, is the trade organization for realtors. Now, Realtors is a brand name. It's like Fritos or Kleenex. Not everybody that sells a home is a realtor. That's the reason you see the trade registration mark after the name realtor. But we do have the largest group in the nation. In fact, statistically, we are well over 90% of agents who sell homes are members of the National Association of Realtors. And there are 1.5 million of us in the United States. There are 10,000 of us here in Central Ohio. The other thing to know about the NAR is that they own, manage, and set rules for inclusion in the multiple listing service. You've heard the term MLS. That stands for multiple listing service. The NAR owns that, licenses it, and sets the rules for participation in it. Here in Central Ohio, more than 97% of homes are sold through the MLS. The 3% are new builds and a few for sell by owners that are thrown in there. But the vast majority of homes are sold through the multiple listing service. So again, the NAR sets the rules for inclusion in the MLS, and as members of NAR, we must follow those rules. So in the past, and if you've ever sold a home, this will be familiar to you. This was what we did for years. In fact, 70 years, 7 decades, we have operated under these protocols. Number one, you're a homeowner and you would call me to come list your home. I would sit with you. I would go over the value of your home. We would establish a price, and then we would establish a commission. And that commission was a dollar figure based on the sale price of the home, historically 5 to 6% of the sales price. Then very likely what I would tell you is that you're going to pay that 5 to 6%, but you're giving me permission to share that commission with the buyer's agent. We were going to take a portion of that 5-6%, usually half, and we're going to give that to the buyer's agent to pay them for bringing the buyer on your home. So effectively, what it's always been for 70 years is that the commission was built into the purchase price. The seller paid it. It was no money directly out of pocket from the buyer. Now they are effectively sharing in the cost of it because they're paying for the home. So it's built into the price of the home. And then at closing, that commission is paid out. The listing agent gets paid. The buyer's agents get paid. You hand over the keys and hopefully everybody's happy. So that's the way we've done it for 70 years. Now, before I go further, I want to explain to you, because a lot of people don't understand what it means and how much money realtors make. So what does an agent actually net? Well, let's talk about the split that happens after we get paid at the closing table. Number one, agents, we are called agents because we are agents of a broker. No realtor, no agent can operate on their own. They must have a broker's license, or we must work under the umbrella of the broker. So who's the broker? The broker is RE/MAX, the broker is Keller Williams, the broker is Century 21. All of those people, all of those brokers are the umbrella under which an agent works. So part of our agreement with our broker is that when we get paid a commission, we're going to share that with them. It's called a split. So across the board, there are splits ranging from 95-5 to 50-50. Usually has to do with your experience and who you choose to work under, what broker umbrella you work under, but average is 70-30. Agents will give 30% to their broker and they take 70%. Then agents are self-employed. We must pay taxes, Social Security, everything you pay or remember paying when you were an employee, that must come out of our commission. So the average net after all the splits is about 58% of the original amount. So for example, on a $400,000 home at a 70-30 split minus taxes, that agent is going to take about $6,800 home from the original $12,000 commission. I share that with you because many of you have sat at a closing table and looked at that commission, and I've heard it a number of times where the buyer or seller would say, boy, I'm in the wrong business. I can assure you, you're probably not, okay? All of us work very hard, and at the end of the day, we make about 58% of that number that you see on the settlement statement. Another average is that the average agent sells 18 homes a year for an annual net income of around $80,000 based on an average sale price here in Central Ohio. So we're not complaining and we're not whining, but neither are agents millionaires or going home with quite a bit of money. And so before we get into talking about commissions, I wanted you to have a realistic idea of how our commissions work and how we get paid as agents. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. Has the commission been negotiable in the past? Well, first of all, yes, a realtor's commission has always been negotiable. You're going to see on your screen there a graph of what factors most influence a real estate agent to lower their commission. And I've been in the business a long time. I've sat at a lot of dining room tables, and I have lowered the commission for just about all of these reasons. Often the homeowner will be buying a home. I'll say, sure, I'll lower the commission on the listing end if you're buying a home and I can represent you. Maybe I will lower the commission because there's competition among listing agents. But again, it's a very common question that homeowners say to their realtor is, I understand we have to pay the buyer's agent, but is your portion of the commission negotiable? And I will tell you, as a matter of fact, for 28 years, it always has been. Now, here's where I call it a yes and no question. If when I'm sitting at your dining room table, I have often said to you, yes, I will negotiate my percentage of the commission, but we don't want to negotiate the buyer's agents down below their 3% because it might jeopardize the number of showings you have, or it might affect the potential sale of your home. So, and that frankly has not been an untruth. That has been true, that in the MLS we have shared what the buyer's agent commission is, and if a homeowner was not willing to pay the 3%, it certainly could affect what buyer's agents, which home they're willing to show. So that's a yes and no question. Yes, it's been negotiable, but no, very often, if you've sold a home before, you were told that we must pay the buyer's agent 3% in order to ensure that your home is sold and that you have adequate representation from the buyer coming to see your home. So that kind of tells us where we've been in the past. We've done for 70 years. Commission is 5 to 6% generally. Listing commission has often been negotiable, but for the most part, the buyer's agent commission has been fixed, or at least that's what the information has been. So let's hit what brings us into the quagmire we're in right now. There was a lawsuit that was initiated several years ago in Missouri. It is a class action lawsuit, meaning several plaintiffs, several homeowners and buyers joined in the lawsuit. And what the lawsuit said was that by requiring sellers to pay 3% of the purchase price to buyer's agents, it was a violation of antitrust laws. And because, as I said, we were building that commission into the price of the home, it was artificially raising the prices on homes. Secondly, the lawsuit said the buyers are being deprived of the right to negotiate their own commission with their agent. That was resulting in them paying higher prices for homes because their agent's commission was fixed at 3%, and that in effect was price fixing. And so what the lawsuit claimed is that the buyer should have the right to pay their agent what they want to. If they don't want the agent to make 3%, if they can negotiate 1%, that's what it should be. If they can negotiate 2%, that's what it should be. But it should be a separate commission from the listing agent. It should not be paid by the seller. It also should not be built into the purchase price of the home. That the buyer should have to negotiate separately with their agent what they want to pay the agent and find an agent that's willing to work for that. Now, I'm not going to go much deeper in the weeds. If you want to Google Realtors Commission lawsuit, you can read to your heart's desire. There are hundreds of articles about it. It will go in depth. You can pull up the court records if you wish. But in essence, that's what the lawsuit said, is that the commissions have been illegally built into the price of the home, and because they were not negotiable, it is in violation of antitrust. The antitrust factor comes from the fact that, as I explained to you, the NAR has an almost monopoly on the sale of homes throughout the country. Certainly Zillow has come along, and Realtor.com and Trulia and Homes.com, where a buyer can search for a home. But when it comes to connecting with a realtor, getting into a house, and actually making an offer on the home, the only way to do that in most areas of the country, including Central Ohio, is through an NAR owned and operated site called the MLS. So because that was largely a monopoly, the lawsuit said it's a violation of antitrust, it's price fixing, and we need to change it. So we have watched this lawsuit wind through the courts for about 8 years now. In March of 2024, just 2 months ago, what happened? Realtors lost. The NAR lost the lawsuit. I jokingly but truthfully say that realtors are not a sympathetic group. Nobody's sitting in the jury box and feeling sorry for us. Everybody in the jury box has probably paid a realtor at one point and thought we made way too much money. So anyway, NAR lost the lawsuit. The other plaintiffs in the lawsuit, or I should say the defendants in the lawsuit, were Keller Williams, Remax, Berkshire Hathaway, and one other brokerage that escapes my memory right now. But all of those brokerages agreed to settle rather than fight the lawsuit. And in the amount of billions with a B, a settlement has been made on this lawsuit. Now, before I go into how this affects you, this is where I'm going to throw in a disclaimer. This information is so new, it is so changing that we do not even have our policies changed, our documents changed, or real succinct rules in how this is going to affect you. However, we do have broad strokes. We know the changes we're going to have to make. We're still getting into the granular of how we're going to change those things. And what I mean by that is our listing agreements are going to change, our buyer agreements are going to change. All of the documentation in the buying and the selling of homes is likely to have changes. Those are the things that haven't been done yet, but we do generally know what the new rules are going to be, and the new rules will greatly affect you. Whether you are a buyer or a seller, it's going to be a brand new day in real estate, and we are all going to have to adjust. So with that disclaimer, I'm going to tell you my understanding of what we're going to do moving forward as we serve our clients here in Central Ohio. Number one, let's talk about if you are on the Zoom tonight and you are thinking of buying a home. You are going to be most greatly affected by this. And in order to understand how this is going to affect you, let me go back and tell you how we've done business as usual. Business as usual is that let's say you don't have a realtor, but you're on Zillow one day and you see a home you want to see. So you click on the agent whose picture is right next to the house. You have just connected with a random agent with whom you have no relationship, but they answer their phone and they say, yes, can I help you? And you say, I would like to see this home at 123 Main Street. Well, for the most part, that agent has said, okay, can you be there at 4 o'clock? I'll meet you. Now, keep in mind, they don't know you. They haven't met you. They don't know if you're qualified, but they don't care. Because what their hope is they're going to get you to 1234 Main Street. You're going to like it. You're going to use them to write an offer, and they're going to earn 3% for showing up and being there. Now, that rarely happens, but that's their hope. Even beyond that, I have past clients who have called me and say, Kathy, we're thinking of selling. Could you show us a few condos? I've said, sure. I'll send you some homes. We'll put a list together and we will get out and start looking at homes. Okay, this is what's going to change under the new rules. Number one, agents will not be permitted to show a home without a signed agreement with you. In other words, there is no casual looking. There is no calling 5 agents and saying, I want to see one, and then I'll use this agent to show over here. Well, I take that back. They might be able to do that, but before any agent takes them to the home, you must sign an agreement saying, number one, you recognize that this is the agent that you are entering into a relationship with. Now, this is where it gets fuzzy because we don't have those documents written, so there's some things we don't know. You know, can you sign 5 of those agreements with 5 other agents out there? We don't know, but what we do know is you will not be allowed to see a house without a signed agreement. The agreement will disclose to the buyer that the agent's commission is negotiable, and then read this, take a deep breath and read the bold print. The payment of the commission is your responsibility. You are going to have to agree to pay that agent out of your pocket or with some other options in order for that agent to show you a home and for you to begin looking at homes. As I said, we are looking at a Category 3 hurricane hitting our industry, but for buyers, it's Category 5. All of the sudden, the buyers who have always known, well, I've got to save my down payment, I've got to have my closing cost, I've got to have money for a home inspection and to pay my homeowner's insurance and all those other things, they're now going to be hit with a 4th group of fees, and that is they're going to have to pay their agent themselves, okay? So what are the buyer's options in paying the realtor? You're saying, well, okay, what if I don't have the money? What if I have saved over here, but I don't have the money? Let me take a literal page out of our buyer book. We have a book that we sit down with buyers and go over them, and this is a page out of that book. You'll see it starts with number 4, because number 1 is you've got to have your we call your prepaid expenses to buy a home. Number 2, you have to have your closing costs saved. And number 3, you have to be prepared to pay your down payment on the home. Well, starting this summer, sometime this summer when the new rules take effect, there will be a number 4. You have to pay your realtor's commission on the home. So number 1, let's talk about that. Just like with the listing agent, as a realtor, my compensation is negotiable. It is my hope that you feel my value to you is worth 3% of the purchase price of the home. So you say to me, Kathy, you're worth 10% of the purchase price of the home, but I don't have that money. What do I do? Can I not buy a house because I don't have that additional $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, $12,000 saved to pay my agent? Well, let's look at your options. Number 1, you can pay the fee out of pocket. This will allow you to negotiate a lower price if the seller has allowed for compensation. I'll get back to that in a minute. You can still ask the seller to contribute towards that commission. In Central Ohio, it is still common for the seller to include allowance for the buyer's agent commission on the purchase price. Or you can combine A and B. You can say, well, I see that the seller is still offering some compensation, and I will make up the difference with money out of my pocket. But the bottom line is, and this is the new thing you're going to have to understand, is the commission will be ultimately paid for, responsible for by the buyer, and you will not be allowed to see a home until that's established, till that's signed and established that you will do that. Now, wait a minute, you say. I thought you said the buyer's commission is the responsibility of the buyer. What is this you're saying about seller contribution? Well, our understanding of the new rules is going to be that the seller can still voluntarily agree to offer some compensation to the buyer's agent. So when I sit at your dining table and I list your home, I'm going to establish my commission with you, just the listing side, you and me, and then we'll shake hands and say, great deal, we're ready to work together. Then my next question is going to be to you, do you wish to share compensation or help in the compensation of the buyer's agent in this? And you're going to say, why would I do that? The new rules for the seller there are new rules that allow for the seller to continue to offer compensation to the buyer's agent. So the big thing is we can't demand it. We can't set the 3%. We can't tell you how much it's going to be, but we can ask you, do you wish to offer compensation to the buyer's agent? And if you do, it is a negotiable amount. How much do you want to? So why would you do that? Let me take a page out of my listing presentation, and my apologies to those of you who I've already sat at your dining room tables. I don't mean to bore you, but I want to tell you what value the buyer's agent brings to you as the homeowner. I want you to understand what they do, how it helps the sale of your home. So let's start with that. If I sit at your dining room table under the New World Order, one of the first things I'm going to tell you is that the compensation is negotiable. My goal as the listing agent is that I bring to the table an investment that's worth 3% of the purchase price. In other words, I'm going to ask you as a listing agent, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, are you willing to pay me 3%? And you might say yes. You might say, well, Kathy, would you do it for 2.5? Or you might say, Kathy, I have an $800,000 home. Would you be willing to list it for a flat fee and you can offer a number? It is a business negotiation that we will have at your table, and we will come to terms on what is a fair price that you're willing to pay and I'm willing to work for. So, brand new world for homeowners in that respect. Now, I'm going to explain to you how the buyer's agent gets paid, and I'm going to ask you, would you like to offer compensation to the realtor representative? Why should you do that? Well, let's talk about what a buyer's agent does and why is it valuable to you. Number one, very simply, they procure the buyer. They are the source of the buyer. Number two, they're going to make sure that buyer is approved for the mortgage on your home. They're going to make sure their buyer understands the process. Remember, now they can't just meet them at the house. They have to sit down, meet with the buyer, make sure that the buyer understands that process. They're going to make certain that the buyer is financially, mentally, and emotionally prepared to purchase. They're going to introduce the buyer to your home through connection with available home search sites. And let me tell you, and this is very important, what a good buyer's agent does. They're going to sell your buyer on the home before you even get there. I recently showed a home in Galena that was a Duffy built home. Now, some of you older people will remember Duffy. Really good quality builder here in Columbus, on level with Bob Webb, C.V. Perry, Romanelli, and Hughes. And I knew that this was a Duffy home in the midst of MI homes. Now, no slam on MI homes, but they're not as nice as Duffy homes. So before I got there to my buyer, I said, I want to make sure you understand this is a much better quality home. This is a custom home, and I was pointing out features in the home that they would not find anywhere else in the neighborhood. That's what a good buyer's agent does. They sell the buyer on the home. Then they point out features that make your home stand out. They compare and contrast the value of your home with competing properties. Then they communicate with the listing agent to craft an offer that's acceptable to you. Most good buyer's agents will make a phone call to your listing agent and say, how can we make you happy, especially in this market right now? They then write the offer, including all terms important to you. They present the offer. They clearly define the terms to me. They negotiate in representation of the buyer. Now, these last two are essential important because once your home goes into contract, you hope to God it stays on track because you've already gone in contract on another home. You've got the mover set. You've got the utility set. This buyer's agent is responsible to keep that transaction on track. They meet deadlines. They work with the lender to get the home to close on time. And in the middle, they solve problems, work as a liaison between the buyer and partners to promote a smooth closing. Now, that has tremendous value to you. Wouldn't you rather have that than a for sale by owner, where a buyer walks in and you hope they can buy the home, you hope they're pre-qualified, you hope they know what to do, and you hope you get to closing with them. So again, a buyer's agent is a valuable service. So the next thing I would share with you is you have an opportunity to contribute to the buyer's agent's compensation. This contribution can be anything. It can be 0 to a higher percentage of the sales price, or it can be a flat fee. To help you make this decision, keep in mind, the buyer's agent will negotiate their own compensation with their clients. Remember, they're not even in your home unless they have a signed agreement with their buyer in which they have established what we call agency or representation, and they have established compensation for that. So the offer or not of compensation from you will be known by the buyer and their realtor prior to showing the home. It won't be a secret. In some form, the buyer is going to know whether or not you have allowed for compensation of their realtor before they look at your home. Now, here's some important things that were settled in the lawsuit. The NAR was accused of insisting on 3% commissions to buyer's agents, and if the seller said no, then the home was put way down at the bottom of the list in the MLS. That was deemed illegal, rightfully so, and so now the amount you offer will not affect your placement in the MLS. You will be in there no matter what you agree to pay or not. Now, the other truth is some buyers will not be able to afford to pay their agent in addition to the standard fees for which they're responsible. So an offer of 0% or $0 may affect the number of showings on your home. Just makes common sense. They have told their agent, I can't afford to pay you, so I can only look at homes where the seller has offered compensation. The other thing that's important to know is, let's say a buyer has agreed that they will pay their agent, I'm picking a number, 2%. Your home is $500,000. So they have agreed at closing they will pay their realtor $10,000. But now there's two homes they like. One home, you're the homeowner who has agreed to pay that 2%. But the other home they're looking at has a zero commission. Which home do you think they're going to go to? They're going to go to the home that allows them to save the $10,000 and mortgage it into the price of the home so it's not cash out of their pocket. So if a buyer's deciding between two competing homes, the offer of no or low offered compensation may affect the buyer's decision and ultimately the sale of the home. As of today, most listings in the Columbus MLS offer between 2 to 3% to the buyer's agent. I very rarely see it go below 2%. It does at times, but I very rarely see it. So once again, your contribution to the buyer's agent's commission can be anything. It can be nothing. It can be zero, it can be a percentage, or you can offer a flat fee to the buyer's agent. Let's take that one step further. Let's do the math. Is it really that different from what we're doing right now? If we price your home based on recent sales, those sales vary right now, almost 100% include a commission paid to the buyer's broker. I've shown right here a sample of an estimate of proceeds in which we've broken down the cost of selling a home, and you'll see that the purchase price has included in it a commission built into that price. So when I do comparable sales and I'm looking at all the homes in your neighborhood, the vast majority, if not all of those homes, are priced with inclusive of a realtor's commission paying both the seller and the buyer's agent. In most cases, when we price your home competitively with the most recent sales in your community, the price of your home will allow for buyer's compensation, ensuring a well-represented buyer, sale, and closing. And in fact, the buyer is still paying their broker fees by mortgaging them into that price of the home. Now, you see the asterisk there, because this is where the change is. It's not exactly the way we've always been doing it. It's going to vary based on the price of your home. And I've already seen this happen. I've had well over a dozen listing appointments ranging in $250,000 homes up to $1 million+ homes. So the $1 million+ home is a whole different conversation than the $250,000 home because of the size of that commission. So whereas the $250,000 home, I might say, look, you're going to have to offer X amount of dollars just to make it worth a buyer's agent's work. Remember, they're only paid on average 58% of that to show your home. On the other hand, I had a listing appointment with a $1.5 million listing a couple weeks ago, and in discussing it, we brought up flat fee. Can we pay just a flat fee to the buyer's agent? And we established an amount that I said, yes, I think most buyer's agents will work for that. So that's the reason it's hard to say here, what am I going to have to pay? Because a lot of it depends on the demand in the market, how many homes are out there, the value of your home, what that commission would be. And so we will look at it on a case-by-case basis, and we will help advise you based on what we know from our side of the industry, what realtors are willing to work for and what will get you the maximum showings on your home. A couple months ago, I listed a $725,000 home. And remember, this is one of the things about the Kathy Cairo Group. We try to stay ahead of the changes and ahead of the curve so that you are not taken by surprise, and we can bring you this information as it's happening. So even 2 months ago, maybe it's 3 months ago, I was having this conversation with my homeowner. They had a $725,000 home. We established my commission. We then discussed the buyer's agent commission. They said to me, Kathy, if we only offer 2%, do you think that will slow down showings on our home? We need it sold. We're moving to Dallas. We do not want to hinder anything. Well, I did the math. At $725,000, the buyer's agent's making $15,000. I said, no, I think most of our good agents will continue to show your home at 15,000. If we find that the showings are slow, we can always go in and up the commission and see if that makes a difference. They had 27 showings in 5 days. We got 6 offers and they sold for 60,000 more than list price. They did not mind paying that 2% on their home. So again, what we see is that when a buyer's agent is fairly compensated, you get the best agents, you get the buyers, and very often we're going to see you get a price on your home that fully compensates you for making that concession to the buyer's agent. So moving forward, and I'll wrap it up and then we're going to take your questions. When choosing a realtor, this is very important. Remember I told you there were 10,000 of us in Central Ohio? In my opinion, that's 9,500 too many, okay? So when you think about this, that we are going to pay the agent, essentially, it's a negotiable amount, it is very fair to ask and expect the realtor to demonstrate their value to you. And it's very fair to ask to negotiate the commission on that. What are the questions you want to ask? What is their experience? What is their sales track record? How well do they know the market? What tools, resources, and knowledge set this agent apart from others? What will they do for you to ensure the successful sale of your home with the very best outcome for you? If they can't answer that question with hard data, good answers, deep knowledge, a wealth of experience, and great resources, then move on to the next agent. There is a difference in our industry between good, better, and best. And as in most things, you'll get what you pay for. Can I tell you a story that I almost with glee share, and you'll think poorly of me? That same example I told you, where I priced the home and they got all the offers and it went up at $60,000 above list. There was a house 5 houses down where the homeowner interviewed me and they found an agent that would sell their home for 1%. I said, I'm sorry, I can't afford to work for 1%. I wish you the best. As of today, that home is still on the market, sitting there. So they got what they paid for. They have now been paying for a vacant home for 3 months because they got an agent who would work for 1%. Now, maybe there are good agents out there that will do that, but I encourage you as homeowners and as home buyers, you've got to investigate. You've got to ask the questions. You deserve, for that amount of money you're paying to sell your home, you deserve for that realtor to sell their value to you and for you to be sold on their value in order to pay that. And now with the new laws changing and the new world coming, you have the right to do that. You have the right to ask the commission. You have the right to negotiate the commission and find the best fit between you and your realtor, either on the buyer side or on the seller side. Now, where do I think we'll be a year from now? I think we will be operating on much the same way that we have, but I do think commissions will come down. I think we're going to see more 2% commissions on both ends. That's great for you as a homeowner, has saved you some money. We will still see the cream rise to the top. We will still see the best agents doing the best work and working for the best income, because the best agents will prove their value to the consumer, and the smart consumer will very much get that they get what they pay for and be willing to put that into the price of their home. So, questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat box. I'm here to answer them. Brandon, do we have any questions yet that you'd like to throw out here?
Nothing yet.
Okay, let me follow up with a couple of things that I know questions I get from homeowners all the time and from buyers. Here's one of the questions buyers ask me. They say, Kathy, what if I negotiate 1% with my buyer's agent and the seller is conceding 2%? What the rules will say is that the buyer's agent can only take what they have negotiated with their buyer. So if you're offering 2 and the buyer's agent has already said I'll work for 1, then you are only obligated to pay the 1 to the buyer's agent because that's what they negotiated with their buyer. Any other questions?
We've got one. How much is the regular commission being paid now?
Um, okay, so that again, that's a tough question to answer. I will say that statistically, the listing side is about, we're not seeing a solid 3% on the listing side. If you were to take all of my sales throughout the year, and if you would break it down and say, Kathy, what is your average listing commission? It would be between 2.1 and 2.5%. That means that generally I'm negotiating my listing side of the commission for a variety of reasons, just like we saw on that slide. It could be that they're a past client. It could be the price of the home. It could be that I'm helping them buy a home. So I would say that the what we've always called the standard commission is still 6%, but that is not the typical commission anymore. The listing side is running between 2 and 3%. And I will tell you, in the past 3 months since this has happened, we are seeing a steady slide on the buyer's end down to 2 and 2.5%. We are more and more, it's more and more a rare thing that we're seeing the 3%. And as this word gets out, and as the consumer's more educated, and as the law change gets closer, I think you're going to see that buyer's commission settle down to more 2% than what we've seen. So if you add those two together, you could list your home for 4.5% with the listing agent getting 2.5% and the buyer's agent getting 2%. It could be a flat fee. So I think ultimately as a homeowner, you're going to save money because you're not going to have the flat 5 or 6%. How much off of that is a case by case basis, depending on the price of your home and that sort of thing.
I'm a senior not looking to buy a home, but to sell mine
Mhm.
and move to senior center. How does that
Okay.
work?
You would still, it's same thing. If you're selling your home, you would still negotiate the listing commission with me, hopefully, if I'm your listing agent. And then we would have the discussion of what you want, if you want to compensate the buyer's agent at all. And that would, again, depend on, here's what I can bring to your table. And I get this question all the time. In fact, I've gotten it every time since I've had this discussion with homeowners and I list their house. They turn to me and they say, Kathy, we don't know what's fair. You know your industry, you know buyer's agents. What will they work for? I mean, what's the number we put out there that we can ensure getting a number of showings, getting good buyers, getting a smooth transaction? What is that number? And I will tell you right now that number, if you go below 2%, you're probably going to have a problem unless you've got a very high-end home. And then if you've got a very high-end home, we have that discussion again and we look at, what is a flat fee? There's no magic number. I just know my industry well enough to know at what point are we going to lose showings or lose potential buyers because they either cannot afford to pay their agent or the compensation is not enough. Let me tell you who's hurt the most by this. And by the way, I use the word hurt. I haven't hit a buyer yet who thinks this is a great idea. So I don't know who those plaintiffs were in the lawsuit, but I haven't yet had a buyer that said, oh, goody, I get to pay my own agent. So the buyer that's going to get hurt the most here are first-time home buyers, younger home buyers, because they simply don't have the money to pay their agent. The other conundrum we're facing right now is veterans, because under a VA loan, they're not allowed to pay any broker fees. So we're likely to see that law change just to benefit veterans, or they won't be allowed to buy homes. So we're already seeing a scramble to change that law so that veterans will be allowed to pay their buyer's agents. So now let me tell you something else I've heard. Well, I have high-end buyers who are coming into town and they say, look, I don't mind at all paying my buyer's agent as long as it comes off the price of the house. In other words, I'm not going to pay them a price of their home that is competitive with homes that we're paying two agents, but now I'm having to pay my agent. So yeah, if I'm paying my agent 2%, I'm going to take 2% off the price of the house. That works in theory. It works unless you're in Central Ohio and competing with other homes. So that's another factor that the lawsuit did not take into account. is that not only are the commissions negotiable, often in the market we're in right now, price is not negotiable. If any of you have either sold a home or know someone that did, you know that the price is negotiable only up in our market many times. And so are you going to ask the buyer to pay their agent but also pay a higher price, which is inclusive of, a value of two agents? So those are the kinds of things, the ball of twine, we're going to have to unravel. But that is, I have had buyers come to town, and I've shared this with them, and they say, all right, no problem. How much do we pay you? And they sign the agreement, and we're off and running. So, but again, you have the vast majority of buyers, if they're buying first-time homes, which is under 400,000 most places in Central Ohio, they're going to have a deer in the headlights. They're just going to stare at this and say, "I can't do it. We don't have the money to pay you. So what do we do?" So that's the reason we are both adjusting and giving them options, as well as encouraging the homeowner to keep their home available to all buyers to look at the home, all well-qualified buyers, by allowing some compensation for the buyer's agent.
Okay.
Okay,
Brandon?
yeah. Will the listing agent be able to know ahead of time what commission the buyer's agent negotiated?
Very good question. And no, I don't believe we will know that. And honestly, let's say I put your home on the market this weekend and you had 25 showings. Do you really need to know what 25 agents are getting paid? No, it doesn't matter to you, because you have set the commission on your end, and you've already built that into the price of your home. Now, here's what we will know. Say you offered 2.5%, and then the buyer's agent has an addendum that says they agreed to work for 2%. That will be part of the contract. In fact, they're working on an addendum to contracts in which it says this is what the buyer's agent agreed to. So you will be limited to whatever the buyer's agent has agreed to work for. So it really doesn't matter on any buyer's agent except the one we go into contract with. But I do not believe we will know ahead of time. Now, they will know ahead of time whether or not you've agreed to compensate the buyer's agent, and that's simply out of just necessity, because they have to determine where that is. Someone put on here, we have submitted a claim in the lawsuit. What are the chances of receiving any money? We paid 3% to both agents. Let me first say that ever since this case won in Missouri, there have been copycat cases all over the country. So some of you may have gotten a postcard or a phone call or someone saying, hey, we're going to start this lawsuit in Ohio. My first answer to Jane's question is I don't know. I have no idea. I know the attorneys win. They get a big bulk of that. Someone else said, where does this money go? Who does it go to? Well, it goes to a lot of attorneys, first of all, and then it is spread among the plaintiffs. And in this case in Missouri, I don't know how many plaintiffs there are, so I don't know who gets what. But here's what I would say in terms of the copycat cases. There were some, and this is where I won't go into it because it's not the purpose of the class, and you can go online and read. There were very unique circumstances to that Missouri case, unique in terms of Missouri state law, unique in terms of the judges involved, unique in terms of the actual complaint, that make many people say that it cannot be replicated again, that wherever this happens in other parts of the country, it's likely to get shut down. So I don't know. You could get nothing. You could get something. But I would say the first case took about 8 years to go through. The brokers that settled, again, I'm not an attorney, but I believe the brokers that settled in that case are now immune to further claims because they settled, or when the settlement is accepted. So Jane, I don't know. You could get nothing. This could drag on for years. But I don't know what the actual plaintiffs are getting. And frankly, that may not even be settled yet, because they're still The actual settlement agreements have not been signed off on legally in Missouri, and whatever happens there would have to be replicated around the country. And in my reading, most people are saying certainly it is ambulance chasing. Attorneys are going to try to go after it, but there are factors that were unique in Missouri that would be very difficult to replicate across the country.
Okay, any idea when these changes will be implemented?
We're told this summer. We are already implementing changes. My team is already implementing changes. We are already sitting down with homeowners and giving them an option. We are already seeing hold on, I'm going to freeze here for just a second. Sorry, I had to plug in my laptop. We are already seeing on our team, on the homes we sell, we are already seeing sellers opt for commissions paying the buyer's agents that are lower than 3%. So the good agents, the agents who are in the business up to our necks and who are familiar with this, we are already adapting. We are already educating our sellers. We are already preparing our buyers. We are already doing this because we know this train is coming down the track. It will become legal, we're told, sometime this summer in July. We will have the firm rules. We will have the new documents. We will have the new laws, the new verbiage, all the things that come along with a big legal shift like this. We will begin to see that. So it depends on, I venture to say, those of you who are on this Zoom tonight, you guys know more than probably a good half of our realtors out there. Because some of the realtors are still catching up with what's going on. Again, my team has always been on the forefront of making sure our clients are educated in the process. And so we're already doing this, but it will become no longer optional sometime this summer is what we're told.
Okay, and have you ever seen a situation where the home you are selling really is worth more than the comparables in the neighborhood? And then I'm going to tag on to a part 2 of that. How would it work if I sell my home with your company and buy one from your company as well?
Okay, very good question. First of all, let's address the first part. Have you ever sold a home that was worth more than anything in the neighborhood? Yes, there is always a home that's nicer than any home in the neighborhood. I'm going to go back to the example I gave you before, where it was a Duffy home that was built at an MI neighborhood. When I ran the comparable sales to show my buyer, certainly I looked at that neighborhood, but then I went out. I had a knowledge of other neighborhoods in the area where the quality of those homes was more on par with the home they were looking at. So I was able to show that. Let me give you another example. There's a builder in Central Ohio named Miranda Homes, and I don't mean to offend any of you if you live in a Miranda home, but they are a very low basic quality builder. They sell square footage. They don't necessarily sell quality. They are built by code, but minimum code. If they're going to put vinyl siding, they're going to use the cheapest vinyl siding. If they're going to build cabinetry, they're going to use the cheapest cabinetry in there. And there is a market for that. There's a market for buyers who prefer bigger houses at lower prices. Well, there are several neighborhoods in Central Ohio where Miranda homes sit next to MI homes or sit next to Dominion homes or like that. So a good buyer's agent knows if I'm pricing an MI home, and the only homes that have sold have been Miranda homes, that home's still going to go out higher. So yes, what we try to do is we try to use what we call the appraisal standard of pricing homes. And that means we're going to look at a sale that happened within the last year. We're going to compare 2 stories to 2 stories, ranches to ranches. We are going to look for square footage within 20%. We're going to look for year built within 5 years of either side. And then we're going to look at quality, the quality differences, and we're going to do our best. I call it an educated good guess based on great data to price your home. But if your home is one that that is for some reason head and shoulders above others in the neighborhood, then certainly we take that into account in pricing your home. Now, the second part of that question is, what if I list your home and you buy a listing that I have. Well, first of all, that's a unicorn. It almost never happens. Remember, there's 10,000 agents out there, so it's very likely that the home you buy will be listed by another agent. So, but if that happens, I think what you're asking is, if I list my home and I work with you and work as a buyer's agent, is there a negotiation? Well, absolutely. Once again, we're going to negotiate the listing commission on your home, and then per the new law, we're going to sit down and discuss my representation or one of my team members' representations of you as a buyer, and we're going to discuss what we are willing to work for and what you're willing to pay. And again, it's going to be highly dependent on what you're buying. If you're buying a $300,000 home, that might be a different negotiation than an $800,000 home. So absolutely, the lesson you should take out of here tonight is every commission is negotiable. And you now have the power and right as the consumer to negotiate that commission with your agent. And so it's going to be a very open, straightforward conversation. And now that I've told you that, you'll be prepared for it when you meet. But yes, if you are working with two transactions within our team, then absolutely you're going to negotiate on both of them, and we're going to willingly welcome that negotiation with you.
And does this affect only residential listings or ones that are B2 as well?
What is B2? I'm not sure what that, or is that a business? Commercial?
Judith, if you're still on, if you could elaborate in the chat, I'll come back to your question. Barb, so this is true all over the USA in every state?
Yes, yes. In fact, it is new and it is changing. And as I'm talking to realtors around the country, all of them are dealing with it in different ways. Now, there are some parts of the country that are ahead of us. Washington, Oregon, some of the western states, they've already done this. They've been doing it for a year or longer. New York, if you ever bought a home or sold a home in New York, flat rate commissions have been very common for years there, and open and negotiable. But yes, this is not an Ohio thing. This is laws that will change in effect across the nation. Wherever you sell, wherever you buy, this will be the new way of doing business.
Okay, and we've got a couple more questions here. I thought the seller shared commission with the buyer's agent.
Mm-hmm.
And am I allowed as a seller to sign with two realtors?
You can't sign with two listing agents, okay? Because one is going to sell your home. You could certainly sign with a listing agent and choose a second agent to work with you as on the buyer end. It does not have to be the same agent. So the answer is no, you can't sign with two agents to do the same thing, but you could certainly sign with Kathy Cairo as your listing agent and Morgan Scroggy as your buyer's agent. You could certainly do that. That would be your option. I listed a home once where the woman's daughter had just gotten her license, and she said, I trust her to find me a home. I don't trust her to sell my home. So I listed, she used her daughter to buy, and I said, good for you. Go do that. So yes, you could certainly do that.
Okay. And going back to the B2, house that sits on acreage with pond and woods, but is zoned business.
Oh, well, if it's a residence, let me first give you my I don't know answer. I don't know if everything I'm telling you affects commercial sales. That's a good question. I'll find that out. Or business sales. But if it is a residence and you are marketing it as a residence that just happens to have a business use, maybe you have a barn and you do horse breeding. Maybe you have dog kennels and you do, you train dogs. If it is being marketed as a residence, yes, this affects that. Now, of course, other factors come in as to who's buying it. Are they buying the business? Are they buying the house? Whatever. But if you are being marketed on the residential MLS, the new rules will affect you.
Okay, and that is a residence, but it could be sold for commercial purposes as well. The next question we have is, let's say the seller has a home built in Central Ohio by a reputable builder. How does that work?
Great question. So typically on new builds, let's back up and explain how we've done it in the past and how this affects the future. First of all, new builds. Let's name the builders. This is your trivia question for the night. MI, Pulte, Fisher, Rockford, DR Horton. Help me, agents. Who am I missing?
Epcon.
Epcon, Bob Webb, Romanelli and Hughes, Silvestri, all of those builders. First of all, those builders have long relied on agents, realtors, to bring buyers to them. So forever in the history of new builds, they have offered to pay the buyer's agent for bringing them a buyer. So last weekend, I had some buyers moving here from Virginia. Before they got here, we had lots of discussions about what they were looking for. They said, we want to look at new builds. We're unfamiliar with what's available in Ohio. So over a 2-day period, I set up 5 appointments with builders in Central Ohio. We went to builders one by one. We learned all about them. They are now in contract on an Epcon home. Well, Epcon has built into their marketing budget a commission to pay me for doing that. They wouldn't know this buyer if I hadn't introduced them to them when this buyer came from Virginia. So Epcon says, Kathy, we're very grateful for that, and we will pay you a commission for representing that buyer. Now, most builders pay 3% on the base price of the home. So if it's $550 and it ends up being $650, they're going to pay on the base. That's pretty traditional. And at closing, my broker gets a check from Epcon or MI or any of those to pay that. It's not included. It's part of their marketing budget. If you don't have a realtor, they don't take it off the price. So essentially what they're saying is, realtors, if you bring us the buyer and you represent them just like you do on an existing home, we are grateful for the opportunity to do business with you. We are grateful that they have good representation. So we are going to pay you to do that. So that's the way we've always done it. Now, the question is, will any of these rules change? Now that there is new rules, the builder is effectively the seller. And so the builders are trying to figure this out too. But what we've heard from the builder reps is that most builders are saying it's business as usual. We will still pay the realtor, the buyer's agent, for bringing us a buyer. Now, will those commissions go down? I don't know. We haven't seen that yet, but most builders are still saying, if you introduce your buyer to our home product, we will compensate you at no cost to the buyer. In other words, you're not going to get it taken off if you don't have a realtor, because we want your buyer and we want them to have good representation. So I tell you that also, some of you may not even know that. If you're thinking of buying a new home, you should grab someone from my team first, let them introduce you to what's out there, and then you will have good, solid representation through the new build process, and the builder will gladly pay us to do that. And that, from what we hear so far, that will not be affected. We are still very much a marketing arm for them, and they very much want you, and they very much want our business.
Okay, and that is all the questions at this time.
Okay, wonderful. You guys have asked some great questions, and I hope you've learned something tonight. A couple things we encourage you to do. If you have your cameras and want to scan the QR code, that'll take you to our website. We would love to have a one-on-one conversation with you. As I've said several times tonight, a lot depends on your home, the price, the competition. So we, members of my team, welcome coming and meeting with you. You can either scan the QR code or just put your name in the chat, and Brandon will follow up with a phone call. This is at no obligation. If you just want to say, Kathy, look, that was a lot of information. I'd really like to know how it affects me personally. I'm not going to be selling this year, but maybe, several months from now, but I want to understand it specific to my home. We're happy to do that. We're happy to come to your home. We're happy to sit down with you, run numbers on your home, show you what your home would likely sell for, and then have that commission discussion to make sure that you are well informed with accurate and updated information how it affects you. So you can either scan here and go to our website and go to the contact me form. Brandon will call you. Or if you want to put your name in the chat, Brandon will follow up with a phone call. All right. Anybody else have anything before we say goodnight? We will be sending out this recording to everybody so that they have an opportunity to watch it, or if some people who were not there. So we will make sure that we do that. Any other questions? Good to see your faces. Good to see you. I would love to see you in person. So you guys have a good evening. And again, you stay in touch with us, and we'd love to help you when you're ready to buy or sell.
Okay, thank you. Can
Thank
you hear me,
you.
Brandon?
Yep.
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm on a phone. I don't have a computer, so I'll be calling you.
Okay.
I'm the one that's going to sell the home without buying a home. I'm looking at going into a senior center, and I don't have money available till the 23rd of December. So I'm looking at the beginning of next year. So we can talk about that. Okay.
Okay. I look forward
Thank
to
you.
connecting.
Thank you very much. Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Bye.